Hi students, welcome to Easy Elimu Learning Simplified. My name is Mbide, and in today's class we're going to learn about action verbs and stative verbs. We are going to define what a verb is, what an action verb is, what a stative verb is, and also construct sentences with each of those two types of verbs. So a verb is a doing word. A verb shows us what someone or something is doing. For example, read, sleep, pray, all those are verbs. I read my books every day. She listened to music yesterday. The cat jumps on the table. The words written in bold, read, listened, and jumps are verbs. So that is the general definition of what a verb is. And we are now going to go into action verbs. Just from the name, these are verbs that show us actions. They tell us what the subject of the sentence does. Now, in a sentence, there is a subject, there is a verb, and there is an object. You're going to learn about that a little bit later. But a subject is the person or the thing that performs the action. And the action in this case is the verb. For example, the student talks to her friends every day. The student talks to her friends every day. In that sentence, the student is the subject. Talks is the verb. So the subject performs the action. The student talks. In the second sentence, everyone eats lunch. In that sentence, everyone is the subject. Eats is the verb. So the subject performs the action. So everyone eats. Eats is the action verb in this particular sentence. So one characteristic or one feature of action verbs is that they can be used with all tenses. Action verbs can be used in all tenses. And we are going to have some examples. So in the simple present tense, you can say, I work. And in the past tense, it will be, I worked. Work and worked are the verbs. In the continuous tense, I am working. That is the present, or in the past, I was working. And lastly, in the perfect tense, I have worked, or I have been working. So work here is the action verb, and as you can see, it can be used in all these sentences and in all these tenses and still make grammatical sense. Now, there are some actions that only happen in the mind. We can't see them, we can't touch them. They only happen in our minds. For example, if I tell you, I like your shoes. In that sentence, I is the subject and like is the verb. However, this verb like, you can't see it, you can't touch it, but it does happen in our minds. So take note of such action verbs. Others include enjoy or think. That's it for action verbs. We are now going to go into stative verbs. And just from the word, stative verbs tell us the state or the condition of someone or something. For example, understand, believe, know. Those are a few examples of stative verbs. So, for example, if I tell you, I understand you, understand, I know you, I believe you. Those are stative verbs. Remember, when we have talked about action verbs, we have said that they are used with all tenses. Now, for stative verbs, that is not the case. Stative verbs are only used with the simple tense or the perfect tense. So we cannot use them with the continuous tense. So, for example, in the simple tense, I can say, I know, or I understand, I believe. And then in the perfect tense, you can say, I have known, I had known that you are lying to me. But you cannot use it in the continuous tense. So you cannot say, I was knowing that you are lying to me, or I am knowing that you are lying to me. You can't. So only with the simple tense and with the perfect tense for both singular and plural. So you can say, I know, or I knew, I understand, or I understood, I have known, or I had known. So we can have a look at a few sentences. We are going to identify the stative verbs in these sentences. The first sentence, I love chocolate. I love chocolate. Remember, we said if you want to identify the verb in a sentence, start by identifying the subject. In this sentence, the subject is I. After that, identify what this subject is doing if you're looking for an action verb, or the state in which this subject is in if you're looking for a stative verb. And so in this sentence, love is the verb, the stative verb. They like that show. They like that show. In this sentence, what is the verb? Like. I know her. Know is the verb. I understand French. Understand is the verb. I need a pen. Need is the verb. We appreciate your offer. Appreciate is the verb. I realize I was wrong. Realize is the verb. I believe you. Believe is the verb. And lastly, I belong to this football club. Belong is the verb. So that's it for action verbs and stative verbs. I hope you've understood and that you're able to distinguish action verbs and stative verbs. Remember, we have said that the main difference between these two verbs is that action verbs can be used with all tenses. Action verbs can be used with all tenses, but stative verbs can only be used with the simple tense and the perfect tense. We can't use stative verbs with the continuous tense. For further practice, have a look at that quiz. Identify the verbs first, classify them as action verbs and stative verbs, and then construct a sentence with each of those verbs. Thank you for tuning in, and see you in the next class.